Hi, it's great to be with you through the magic of video today. My name is Steve Liggett. I've had the good fortune to work with HNTB over the last almost 20 years. I help you and your colleagues with presentation skills training, with pursuit strategy, with presentation development, with rehearsing actual presentations before the final presentation to win new business. And it's great for me to be here with you today to talk about something. I want to talk today about the power of X. And the real question is, what does X equal along the way? And to get the answer to that question, we're going to ask a couple of other questions. So I want to go over here to this side of the room. How many numbers in a telephone area code? In the telephone area code, how many numbers? I hope your colleague said 3. Now I want to go 3 people in right over here. You right there. You right there. The triangle is perceived to be the strongest geometric form. How many sides to a triangle? And I hope the answer you just got was 3. And if you take this further and you ask people, how many strikes do we get in baseball? How many Stooges do we normally think of? How many wise men? The number 3 comes up time and time and time again. And so the reality here is I want to talk today about not just the power of X, I want to talk about the power of 3. And what I want to share with you is that the number 3, when it comes to communications, the number 3 is mysterious, mystical, mythical, powerful, provocative, and most important, persuasive. Anytime we can make our case for or against a position and use 3 distinct arguments, not 1, not 2, not 4, not 5, not 17, but 3 distinct arguments, the chances of carrying that position, no matter which side you're on, the chances of carrying that position increase dramatically. Now, I wish I could say to you, here is exactly why we know this is the case. I was taught this 30 years ago. I've been practicing this for 30 years. I started my business about 20 years ago. I was determined to get to the answer, to the bottom of this, and I got on the web and I said, there has to be a half a dozen PhD theses that describe this, and the answer is no, they don't exist. This is old. Aristotle, Socrates, both of them talked about this in their treatises on rhetoric. This is something great communicators have been doing to us and for us, if you will, for thousands of years. Why does it work? What's going on here? There are a lot of theories, and I want to share 3 of those theories with you today. As I've studied this, as I've practiced this, as I've worked my way through this over the last 30 years, I'm convinced that there are 3 big reasons why the power of 3 works extraordinarily well. The first issue is memory. Memory experts tell us that almost all of us can remember 3 things extraordinarily well. That we can remember 3 things easier than 4, 5, 6, 7, 17 things. That makes perfect logical sense. But here's what doesn't make perfect logical sense. Memory experts tell us that almost all of us can remember 3 things easier than we can remember 2 things. How can that be? How can we remember more better than less? It appears that the number 3 sticks to the Velcro of our brain better than any other number that we have. If that's the case, let's leverage it. Let's use it. The second reason the number 3 works extraordinarily well is because of the brain and the way that our brains manage information. Now this is a simple technique that designers have known for years. I get to work with your colleagues all over the country, and I get to work with really talented people, and I get to work with really talented landscape architects on a regular basis. And here's what we all know. No landscape architect worth his or her salt would ever give you a set of plans with 4 bushes or 4 trees lined up in a row like that. They use odd numbers. 3, of course, is an odd number, and they would put those bushes or trees together in some sort of a format like that. Architects will tell you that this is a stronger geometric form than this, unless when your eye looks at that, it really picks up the recesses between the columns, in which case that becomes the winner. Now why is this? Why does this work? Well, our brains are designed that when we're confronted with a lot of data, we break things into component parts. And so the brain looks at this and says, there aren't 4 bushes or 4 trees. There's really 2 groups of 2. And what happens is now you've diminished the whole. You've broken it into pieces. But now the brain turns to this, and the brain says, oh, really hard to break it in half this way or this way or this way. And the brain is forced to put its little hands around all three of those items. And now that one single message is imprinted in our brain, and we're going to remember it much, much better. And finally, the third reason this seems to work extraordinarily well. I believe this is part of our DNA, and I don't want to go out on the deep end here very far, but I think this is part of our very soul. And I want to step back for just a second and take a look at almost every major religion in the world, both Eastern and Western. Think about how many of those religions have some sort of a platform that the entire belief system is built on, that's built in three parts. That power of three is there in almost every major religion in the world. I just think this is part of who we are along the way. So the question becomes, how can we use this? How can we leverage this? How can we make this work for us? I will tell you, this changed my career. I would be sitting in a meeting when I was younger, and I would be sitting there fat, dumb, and happy, not bothering anybody, and someone would turn and say, Steve, what do you think? And I would immediately get that deer in the headlights look, and my response would be something like, whoa, Katie talked about it, and then James, but if we, yeah, maybe we should. Now, right there is not exactly a powerful response. And when I started using what I'm about to teach you, this power of three, how to, on an impromptu basis, use this, it changed my career. On more than one occasion, my client called my boss, sometimes before I ever got back to the office, and said, hey, Steve really helped us today. I want him to be on this project all the way through to the end. And that's the way you get ahead in any business. When clients want to work with you, you're going to be okay. So how does this work? How do we make this happen? Well, when you're called upon impromptu and someone says, hey, what do you think? Or what are we going to do here? You simply start by framing your answer in three. Now, there are some basic rules to using this concept, and let's dig into those rules, and let's talk about the rules for using the power of three. They're simple rules, and amazingly enough, there are just three rules we have to remember. Rule number one. Rule number one is you need to invoke the power of three. As you get ready to respond, you need to simply say, there are three reasons. Or let's think about the three issues we've got to cover here today. Or you may want to get really forceful and simply say, look, there are three things. If we don't do these three things, this project's going to be an unmitigated disaster. Now, when you do that invocation, there's a couple of body language issues I want to share with you. First of all, if you're sitting, and this is the time that we get to use it most of all, is when we're sitting in a meeting. You want to lean into that table. That's the power move. You want to lean into that table because there's a big difference between stepping back and leaning forward when you deliver this invocation. And if you're standing like I am right now, the trick is you want to move forward. Look, there's three things we have to cover today. We need to get these three things taken care of before we leave here today. You'll send a message that this means business. One of the reasons for this invocation is to frame the issue so that everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. And quite frankly, one of the reasons you want to deliver this invocation is to buy yourself some time, to begin to let your brain start to work, to find those three reasons behind the issue. All right, rule number two. Rule number two, if you can, deliver your most important message first or third. All these 3 points that you're going to have aren't equal. So if you can, try your most important point out either first or last. And the reason for this is simple. Even though we can remember three things extraordinarily well, it's the middle one that often gets lost. So trot your first one out, that's the best, or your best one out, the third. Doesn't matter, one or the other, but try to not bury it in the middle. And finally, rule number 3. Please notice the fingers are plural here. Give them the fingers. Show them some way or another the number 3 so that they not only hear the number 3 when you do the invocation, but they see the number 3, and now what you've put is a double whammy onto their brain. They get it through the ear and they get it through the eye, and now you've imprinted that much, much more strongly right into their brain. So how does this work? I know what you're all sitting here thinking. What if I can't think of 3 things? What if I only have 1 or 2 things on my mind? And the answer is that's exactly what's going to happen. And so the response is faith and practice, my children. And the practice part you're going to do in just a little bit. In just a few moments, you're all going to get a chance to practice this power of 3 with some topics. But the faith part is understanding and knowing that when you say, at the very beginning of this process, there are 3 things we have to take care of, that you can find those 3 things in your brain. And the answer is, of course, you can. Let's use an example here along the way. I might turn to somebody and I might simply say, here, use the power of 3 to explain to us, please, why we're so fascinated with the American system of justice. Now, that's not exactly a lightweight topic, and not a lot of us have spent a lot of time pondering that, but this is something that we can actually respond to pretty quickly. And you say to yourself, how? Where do I even start? There must be a trick to this. And the answer is, there is a bit of a trick to this. Start with the central issue. I always think about the central issue as a sphere. So I've got this sphere that's the American justice system. And what sits below it? What does it sit on? What's the foundation for it? Where can I grab some ideas there? What's tangential to it that I can pull off to the side? What's in orbit around that sphere that I can pull off? And often it's just a matter of pulling and peeling those kinds of things off to make your case. And so I would respond by simply saying, look, there are 3 reasons we are so fascinated by the American judicial system. Number 1, court TV. You can go home, turn on the TV. There's a cable channel devoted entirely to court cases, real court cases. And some of them can suck you in pretty quickly. Number 2, celebrities. Celebrities in the news media together have joined into some sort of a little consortium here where only thing that seems to worry us about is Lindsay Lohan in jail, is she out of jail, is Justin Bieber in jail, is he out of jail? These are the kinds of things that the tabloids love, and we get sucked into our system. And finally, that TV show, that 3rd reason, that TV show, Law and Order. Law and Order on Monday night and Tuesday night. And Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday. We just can't escape this silly show. It's everywhere. And all of those contribute to our fascination with the judicial system. And it's often just as simple as that. It's a matter of grabbing that topic and laying 3 things around it. Now, imagine if you can do that with the American judicial system, and now you get asked the question that you really do know something about. I don't understand. Why can't we just make that beam a little less deep? There are 3 reasons that beam has to be that deep. I don't understand. Why can't we just go ahead and just put some drainage right there? There are 3 reasons why the footprint won't allow us to put the drainage unit right there. These are things that we do all the time. We make the case all the time. I'm just asking you to wrap the case with the number 3 along the way. Now, some quick caveats. The first caveat is you can't use this 5 times in a 5-minute meeting. People will start to figure it out. But I will tell you, I had clients I did this with for 15 years. I used it 5, 6, 7 times a week, different people, different meetings, and they never figured it out. Just be judicious. Second thing is, anytime any of one of you in this room or in another meeting with any other person in this room, and you watch that second person over here on my left say, well, there are 3 issues we have to consider, you got to promise me you won't laugh, because you're going to see it coming from 100 miles away. But the rest of the audience won't. This works with small children. This works with significant others. This works sometimes with teenagers. This works great over the telephone. Try it. Use it. You'll like it. There's something powerful, provocative, most importantly, persuasive about the number 3. Leverage this business of memory, the way the brain manages information, and part of our DNA and maybe our soul. Use these simple concepts. What you're going to find is you'll get the decision you want more often. Try it. Use the power of 3.